All right, chat. We're back with another different color set review here. This time we're in green. We did white, blue, black, red. So green is the last single color of the Wooburg. We're running between average about 25-30 minutes per because I'm discussing the cards of constructed playability in standard, explorer, pioneer, and possibly historic and modern if relevant, but the majority of the cards don't seem to be very older format centric except maybe a couple. But be that as it may, we're going to get to green. So green, Defiler of Vigor. This is a cycle. 2 green, 3 colorless, Phyrexian Worm, 6/6 trample. As with all the others, as an additional cost to cast green permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost 1 green less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of green mana you pay, and it only affects 1 pip. So instead of, when you have this in play, instead of it costs 2 green, for example, now it costs 1 green and 1 Phyrexian mana, and the Phyrexian mana is you pay 2 life. And with this, it says whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So the black one was target creature. This one is all creatures. This one is sort of medium. Green has a crap ton of 5 mana creatures that are 6/6 and have trample. And this is another one of them. The green permanent spell, +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I thought it was +1/+1 on just a creature, but this is each creature. I don't know if that really changes much in the fact that this doesn't have evasion other than, you know, the keyword trample. And it still costs 5 mana, which makes it worse than the other 4 mana options in the red and the black one already. But as always, green gets the best creature of the versions, or rather the best statted. Does that matter? You have to play this early. So, for example, you got to go with, you know, Stomper or a Accelerator creature probably on 2 or 3 mana, and then play this on 4. And again, green permanent spell, +1/+1 counter on everything, even turns your green creature accelerators into actual creatures. So I'm Spirit Chiller. What's going on? I'm not sure how good this is, but if you're playing this early, like in tandem with, you know, what's that card? Vorinclex, maybe. So like you cast Vorinclex and now you're really doing it. Pioneer, I'm not so sure, because Pioneer, you're killing people on turn 3, turn 4 consistently. I say turn 3, but I really mean turn 4. Like the games aren't ending on turn 3, but the games are pretty much over, depending on what decks you're playing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this will see playing standard. I just don't know how good it is, and we'll have to find out. But as the formats get older and the card pools get bigger, 5 mana is kind of like, are you playing this over Gargaroth or any other green spell? And I just don't know. But in standard, you could probably see this scene play. But there are a lot of 5 drops, so you're just like, are you playing this over Nissa? Are you playing this over a lot of other stuff? Cavalier Thorn, stuff like that. So this might be better than Cavalier Thorns, but it'll remain to be seen in those older formats. But in standard, yeah, I can see the scene play. Gaia's Might, Tribal Flames and Domain and everything. 1 green instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each basic land type among lands you control. I more care about this in older formats like Modern and Pioneer and many others, wherein you get to Domain pretty easily, especially in Modern, where this is just basically 1 green. Target creature gets +5/+5. So, wait. Is this the reprint? At first, wait, hold on. I think this is a reprint. If this is a reprint, then... Oh, man, that sucks. I thought this card was not the reprint. It is a reprint. Man, that's terrible. Okay, so this is just a reprint. I thought this was the other one, or the original, but this is the original. This is Gaia's Might, so unfortunate, but still good. Like, so, Modern already has this, and now it's in Pioneer and Historic, so still decent. Probably not seeing Standard play unless there's a way to get a bunch of, if you're playing the Domain strat, but again, you would much rather have the Domain type strats, but I don't see that in Standard, and Historic is really the only one. So, moving on. I put this on here because I thought it was a different print than the original, but this is a reprint, so unfortunate. All right, Herd Migration, 1 green, 6 colorless sorcery domain. Create a 3/3 green beast creature token for each basic land type among lands you control. 1 green, 1 colorless. Discard Herd Migration. Search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand. Then shuffle. You gain 3 life. So I was looking at this as a finisher in a domain strat. Unfortunately, for some reason, I read this card as a rampant growth as the discard, and it said put into your hand, not into play. So sort of off this already. 7 mana is a lot. If you're playing this for domain, you're getting 15 power for 7 mana, which is relevant. However, if you're playing domain or the domain strat, your domain sweeper also kills all your beast tokens. So I don't know. More of a limited card, I think, than a standard playable card. So I thought this set will be on Arena on the 1st. That's what Wizards said anyway. Is it on the 1st? I thought it was the 2nd, because usually they put it on Fridays. Maybe it is the 1st. I had it on the 2nd because I thought it was the 1st or the 2nd, but maybe it is the 1st, and I was just hold on, let me look that up. I really thought it was the 2nd for some reason. Dominaria Arena release. Do. Arena Cube is live until the 1st. The article doesn't say. Nope. Available at release, 1st of September. Man, I feel dumb. Wow. Okay. Yeah, this isn't text. It's text in the video, or in the of the picture, not it's not actual text on the stream. So, man, unfortunate. All right. I'll probably put like something in the video title. I don't know, whatever, or in the description. All right, Herd Migration. Yeah, I already talked about this. Unfortunate. Yeah, that's what I think about this card. Leaf Crown Visionary, 2 green, Elf Druid, 1/1. Other elves you control get +1/+1. When you cast an elf spell, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. I think this is the best lord in the set for elves, and I think this pushes elves into tier territory in Pioneer and possibly other older formats as well, like Modern and Legacy, because of the fact that you get to pay every time you cast an elf spell, you get to pay 1. And I built an elf deck in Explore, and it was really, really close. But the fact that it only had 1 lord was an issue. And this Lord basically does what I wanted Rites of Harmony to do, which is basically what this card does. But I'm also playing Rite of Harmony in the deck also. So basically I have six cards that say draw a card when you cast a creature. And that's basically with this and Collected Company. So that's the first deck I'm playing in Pioneer as Elves with this. Because your Lords are all 2 mana. And because you have this and Elvish Clancaller. So this card seems really good. So because every time you cast one, you just pay 1. And and I'm also trying to play the enchantment that gives you Gaia's Cradle. So yeah, that's the first deck I'm playing. I don't know if it's good in Standard because I don't think there's a lot of good Elves in Standard, but specifically Explorer and Pioneer, where Pioneer has the Shaman that deals damage or the opponent loses life for each elf you control when it enters play. Explorer doesn't have that, but you have enough Lords. So I want to try it, and we'll see if it's legit or not. Llanowar Green Widow. 1 green, 2 colorless, 4/3 creature, or 4/3 spider, reach, trample, domain, 7 and a green. Return Llanowar Green Widow from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It gains if this permanent would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each basic land type. This card's really good. Unfortunately, when it comes back into play, it doesn't gain any abilities other than it's just a 4/3 reach with trample as a 4/3. For 3 mana, I would have expected this to be a 3/4 over a 4/3, but I mean, who's really complaining when you get, 8 power and 7 toughness for a bunch of mana? And if you're playing Domain, as in you're playing 3, 4, or 5 colors, then being able to recast this or put it back into play for 3 mana is kind of relevant. The thing that sucks is it comes into play tapped. Like, this seems really, really tuned as opposed to, it just coming back into play. And it doesn't have haste. So, I don't know. At worst, it comes into play at 7 mana. At best, it comes back for 3 mana. So, but 4/3 for 3 with reach and trample is still good. It's still good on rate. The graveyard stuff, And it kind of sucks that if it would leave the battlefield, so you can't bounce it, you can't blink it, you can't do any of that. Just get exiled instead. So, Standard only. I don't think this is playable in any other format besides Standard. Llanowar Loam Speaker, 1 green, 1 colorless elf druid. 1/3, tap, add a mana of any color. Tab, target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature token with haste until end of turn. It's still a land, activate only as a sorcery. Generally, your ramp creatures or accelerated creatures are just that. They're accelerated creatures and that's it. When you tack on a late game text on a card, it becomes much better than your other ramp strategies. It's really bad to draw Rampant Growth or Cultivate or Llanowar Elves or any type of accelerated or Mana Dork or accelerated creature or spell in the late game and it doesn't do anything. This, on the other hand, says, I'm good in the early game, I'm decent in the middle game, and I'm very good in the late game when we're trading resources and we got nothing left. So, unfortunately, it's a sorcery when this happens, but if they're going to kill it, they're going to kill it before you get to untap with it anyway. So, this is one of the better mana dorks in a long, long time. And the fact that you get to, actually, this is actually a kill condition if you draw it late. So, and it's a mana dork that's, not as good in the early game as, say, Utopia Sprawl, or rather, Utopia Tree, or whatever the hexproof thing is in Pioneer. But in Explorer and Standard, being able to get a mana of any color, and in the late game, this becomes a kill condition, even if it's not as good in the late game, but still something you can use, is relevant. Aquarian Beast Caller, 1 green, 1 colorless, Dryad Warrior, 2/2. When you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Aquarian Beast Caller. When Beast Caller dies, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Beast Caller. This is sort of like better than Query Dryad, where, you know, there's these old decks called Miracle Grow, and the whole point is to play Quarian Dryad, and you just cast everything but green spells, and every time you casted a spell, it got a +1/+1 counter. And this is basically that, except you're doing that with creatures. I don't know if this is relevant in Standard or any other format, but I think putting counters on creatures and this when you cast a creature spell is more relevant than just spells, like colored spells. Because you can play mono green or green red or whatever, and this still synergizes with, you know, say your creatures, like your mana dorks or whatever. And if you ever untap with this and get a +1/+1 counter, I think you've done it. So this is sort of like I don't want to say it's a must answer, but it's basically if you get to untap with this, you're ahead. Because if you cast any big creature and it gets a +1/+1 counter, look out. Mostly for Standard, I don't know if this is good enough in Explorer or any older format, but Standard specifically, this is something you want to test in your green creature decks. This is one of my favorite cards in the set, chat. Silverback Elder. 3 green, 2 colorless, Ape Shaman, 5/7. When you cast a creature spell, choose 1. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You gain 4 life. So this card, chat, is not legendary. So you can Fable this. And the one thing that this synergizes with is Stomper. So I can see a deck that's just mono green or green red with this, and you're dealing with every artifact and enchantment because it's every creature spell you cast. And if you need more lands, you're going to find lands with this, where you go cast Silverback Elder and you have Stomper in play, and you untap, play a land, play another Stomper, get another land, get 2 lands, and then now you can attack with Stompers. If you're playing with Fables, yeah. And you're playing with Titan of Industry that also... Chat, I am all about the mono green big creature stuff, and this seems very good with all that stuff, because this is a green mythic if I've ever seen one. It's not as good as others, but it's a 5/7 over a 6/6, and it blocks really well. Unfortunately, it doesn't have like vigilance or any of that, but it's got a lot of text. And I'm excited to play with this in just a mono green splashing a color. Red, blue, black, maybe even 3 colors. Some of the decks that are playing 3 colors with Triomes, like Jun or Naya or any of those that are green. Bant even. So, yeah, I'm hella excited for this. Slimefoot Survey. I put this in here because of the domain, where you're getting 2 lands that have basic land types. So for 5 mana, if you play this on Accelerated Curve, you get basically 2 Triomes, and now you have domain. It's a little slow, but you get to search your library for up to 2 land cards, any lands, that have a basic land type on them. And you look at the top X cards of your library, and where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control, put one of them on top of your library and the rest in on the bottom of your library in random order. So basically, you use this to set up for your next turn, and you're looking at the top 5 cards and looking at putting in the top. Is this good enough? I don't know, but you're not playing this on 5. You want to play this on like 3 or 4 and getting your domain if you don't have it already, and then setting up for the game ender on the next turn. It's more of a standard card than any other because you're not playing this in any other format but standard because it's just good enough there probably. I'm not saying it is. And just like one of those, if you didn't know, this allows you to get domain if you don't already have it. Tear Asunder, 1 green, 1 colorless, kicker 1 black, 1 colorless. Exile target artifact or enchantment. If this spell was kicked, exile target non-land permanent instead. This card's absurd. So if it wasn't already a good card as a, artifact or enchantment naturalized strat, now you get to kick it, and now you get to hit anything. Artifact, enchantment, planeswalker. It's basically a worse version of Binding the Old Gods, but it's exile target non-land permanent, chat. Anything. And it's exile. This card is really good. I don't know if it's standard, I don't know if it's main deckable, but if you're going to play it, I'd play it as a one of, and then have like a couple in the sideboard where you don't have to play like a couple of creatures like Outlander or Outland Liberator or any of those other cards. And, there's a couple more. The World Spell. 2 green, 5 colors, read ahead. The final read ahead sagas. Look at the first 2 chapters, or look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-saga permanent card from among them and put it into your hand, and put the rest of the bottom of your library in any order. Chapter 3, put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is essentially the saga version of Tooth and Nail, but it only costs 7. And if you already have a 7-drop or a huge permanent already in your hand, you skip a chapter and go to chapter 2, trigger it once, get the second, or if you already have 2 in your hand, you just play it and just put the 2 cards out onto the battlefield. The World Spell seems like a different version of Tooth and Nail. So I think this is, I don't want to say strictly better or objectively better, but this has some relevance in that if you're going to play a big mana, big creature deck, like this is just with Jin-Gitaxias or any of those big, giant, dumb creatures, or permanents rather, this is what you're playing with. Sort of like how in old Tooth and Nail decks from old Standards time, you get double Darksteel Colossus or double Buckethead, or, Triskelion, and the Vampire, and stuff like that. I don't think this is playable in any other format other than Standard, but maybe. Threats Undetected, 2 colorless, 1 green. Sorcery, search your library for up to 4 creature cards with different powers and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Shuffle the chosen cards into your library, put the rest into your hand. It's a sorcery for 3. It's basically gifts ungiven for creatures, but it costs 1 less. And they have to be different powers, but it does different powers means any creature. So mana value 7, mana value 6, 1 drops, 2 drops, anything you want. Just got to be different power. And seems decent. I don't know how good this is, but being able to get 4 creatures that are just stupid good and your opponent has to choose seems, you basically get to pick your poison with this. We've seen different type of green 3 or 3 drops that, you get to draw 2 cards, but they're always creatures type deal. They never really saw play, but this one maybe, because you get to search for any creature you want. And when you get to search for anything you want and you get to put those in your hand, and you're basically just getting like 4 great creatures seems a lot better than the rest of them that are just like, look at the top 5 and put 2 creatures into your hand. Seems a lot better than those cards. Mostly standard playable. I don't know how good this would be in Pioneer or Explorer or Modern, but this seems very good in tribal decks, where it's kind of like you can use this in Elves, for example, because all of those have different powers. So maybe those are worth it, but I don't know. You have to test it. Urborg Lurgoyf, I guess is how you say that. 1 green, 1 colorless, star, 1+star, kicker, blue and or black. As Goyf enters the battlefield, not Tarmogoyf. Mill 3 cards each time it was kicked. Goyf's power is equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. This is one of those cards where you're incentivized to just play all creatures, and it sucks that it's only your creatures, not opponents and yours. So this is more of a deck that would play in older formats where you're playing with like stuff like Stitcher Supplier, and very, 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 very low to the ground. So like Goyf, Fiend Artisan, Stitcher Supplier, and just an all creature deck where you're very, 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 very low to the ground, where stuff is just cost, 1s, 2s, and possibly 3s, but you're playing stuff like Mulch. Not even that. You're just playing all creatures that mill stuff. So Stitcher Supplier, and if you're in Pioneer, you play Satyr Wayfinder. This is one of those things that you might play with, say, Soul Herder, I think is the card. Soul Herder or Grimflayer or whatever that stupid card is where you mill, and whenever you delve, you get the abilities of the card, the keywords and whatnot. In Standard, I'm not sure how good this is, because there's not very many creatures that say mill, because all the good mill creatures are in older formats. But if you get, 2 or 3 creatures in the graveyard, well, man, if you milled that many, well, now it's a 4/5 or a 5/6. So maybe, but this seems like close to Goyf, but not as good as Goyf in older formats. Vineshaper Prodigy, 1 green, 1 colorless, kicker, 1 blue, 1 colorless. When Prodigy enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest of your bottom of your library. So, as an elf, a 2/2 for 2 is already good on rate, and being able to kick this to draw a card is relevant. More in limited than constructed, but in constructed and standard specifically, being able to put it into your hand is relevant, and seeing 3 cards is still good. Is it a 4 of? Maybe not, but it's hard to ignore an elf at the 2-drop slot when you don't have the Elvish Visionary in your deck, and you have to play stuff like this. And then finally, Yamamaya Iron, Iconoclast, 1 green, 1 colorless, 3/2 elf. Another 2-drop elf that has kicker, 1 red, trample. When Yamamaya Iconoclast enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield, it gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. It doesn't gain haste for life, just for that turn. So a different version of Gruul Spellbreaker, in that you get the +1/+1 counter and haste regardless, but it's only a 4/3 and doesn't have the hexproof stuff. So decent aggro card because it's a 3/2 for 2, which is already on rate. And if you kick it, so if you have, acceleration in older formats, you might be able to kick this, Explorer especially. In Standard, it's still relevant. Being a 3/2 for 2 is already good. And then being able to kick this for 3 and being a 4/3, being able to, get a little bit bigger and having haste is also relevant. So don't be surprised if you see this in standard. All right, that was the last green card. We're done with the single color cards. Be able to, you know, see multicolor and artifacts and lands. I might do the lands in tandem with the artifacts, and then multicolor is going to have multicolor by itself, because really I put a bunch of them in, but the majority of them are sort of like commander cards. But still, that's relevant. It's constructed anyway. I'm not a commander player, but maybe some of my fans maybe. All right, cool community. Socials in the description below. YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. If there's any card that I didn't talk about that you think is constructed playable, let me know in the comments below. Let me know on Twitter. Let me know on Discord. All that stuff is on the stream. Twitch link in the description below. Schedule's a little wonky, but still trying to make content more on the Twitch spectrum than YouTube itself, but still trying to put stuff out, even if it's sporadic. So thanks for all that, and we'll see you in the next video where multicolor cards.